is Afghanistan. Where do we go from here? And we have with us to give us an analysis of some of the issues that we face in Afghanistan, Dr. LMadu2. Dr. LMadu2, let's pick up where we left off last time, and I don't want to lose any of this. Simply pick up where we left off last time for the next, this segment, for the next 8 minutes. Go and tell us about it.
And you know, it's important for people to understand how all this problem started in Afghanistan. In 1973, the king, and you know, Afghanistan used to be a kingdom. The king, Ahmed Zahir Shah, was overthrown, you know, by his relative, General Mohammed Dawood. Dawood, on taking over, abolished the kingdoms, you know, but he was very repressive and brutal. So in 1978, officers in the Afghan army who are loyal to the Communist Party overthrew Dawood and executed him and everybody in his family, and declared the People's Democratic Republic of Afghanistan under a man called Mohammed Taraki. Taraki took over in 78, you know, established a communist government supported indirectly by the Soviet Union. In early 1979, about April, I think, yep, 79, insurgents, a lot of the Islamic, you know, insurgents in Afghanistan started organizing because they opposed a communist government in Afghanistan. Like I've said earlier, Afghanistan is an overwhelmingly you know, Islamic nation, about 99%, 80% Sunni, 90% Shiite. So they were upset about the nationalization of the lands and all those things, and so they started organizing, opposing the government. So in September 1979, Mohammed Taraki's deputy, Hafizullah Amin, who was educated at Columbia University, overthrew him and killed him and took over the government. Amin was very brutal, very repressive, and the Russians didn't like him either. The Russians thought he was a secret CIA agent, and that he was very vicious, that he would cause a lot of problems for them more than a moderate, you know, a communist leader. So Brezhnev ordered, you know, Russian troops to move into Afghanistan and overthrew Amin. So in September of 1979, you know, the Russian troops started preparing to move in force. They were already in Afghanistan, but on the orders of Brezhnev and the Russian Soviet Politburo, they invaded Afghanistan fully in December 27th, 1979, and killed Hafizullah Amin and overthrew his government, and installed Babra Kamal as president of Afghanistan. That was when President Carter, remember, you know, boycotted the Olympics in Moscow because of that event. So when Babra Kamal took over, you know, the insurgents, you know, grew very, very rapidly. The United States decided to support, you know, the Afghan Mujahideen, which was what they were called. We supplied the guns, the soldiers paid for the guns, and the Pakistanis trained the Mujahideen. Between 1983 and 1997, the Pakistani intelligence service called the ISI, you know, Inter-Services Intelligence, trained about 83,000 Mujahideen. We supplied them with Stinger missiles and all that to shoot down Russian planes. You know, this lasted from 79 to 89 when the Russians withdrew. But meanwhile, in 1986, you know, the Russians, when Gorbachev came in, he got tired of the man who was in charge, Babra Kamal. He said the man was weak and ineffectual. So he organized a little coup for him to step down, and Najibullah took over as president of Afghanistan. Najibullah was tough, but at the same time he was smart. You know, he tried to co-opt the Mujahideen, but they refused. You know, so in 1992, General Abdul Rashid Dostum, who was the leader of the Uzbeks and a general in the communist army, turned against, you know, Najibullah, and allowed the Mujahideen to take over the government in Kabul, and installed a man called Burhanuddin Rabbani. Rabbani's government was split, you know, because of conflict with the other rebel forces. Rabbani was supported by Ahmed Shah Massoud, who was the legendary, you know, military commander of the Mujahideens. but Masood came from the minority ethnic Tajik group. You remember the majority of Afghans are Pashtuns, like I said before, about 42%. And one of the leaders of the Mujahideen was a Pashtun called Gulbuddin Hekmataya. Hekmataya refused to accept the authority of the Tajik regime in Kabul, and they continued to fight amongst themselves, giving the Taliban, you know, meanwhile the Taliban started organizing under Mullah Omar, giving them the chance to take over the government in 1994. So in 1994, the Taliban moved in and took over control of Afghanistan and declared it the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, you know, under Mullah Omar. So that's how bin Laden came in. And people are wondering, well, how did bin Laden come into all this? Well, the fact is that all those mujahids who were fighting against the Russians, there was an Arab contingent, you know, fighting with them. Remember, the Mujahideen was financed by Saudi Arabia, where bin Laden comes from. All the money for the equipment that the United States, you know, provided was paid for by the Saudis. So when the Taliban came in, they kept bin Laden and his Arab delegation in Kabul with them, you know. Mullah Omar needed bin Laden.
To get they needed
exactly the money. Exactly, they needed that money to keep flowing from bin Laden personally and also from the Saudis. Yeah, so they kept bin Laden and his Arab contingent in Kabul with Ayman Zawahiri, who is the chief strategist, you know, for Al-Qaeda. Zawahiri was a member of the Takfir Hijira in Egypt, who was responsible for the assassination of President Anwar Sadat. And he was he's still the chief strategist of Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda. So that's how Al-Qaeda came into play in Afghan politics. Majority of the Afghans didn't like the Arabs meddling in their internal affairs. But the Taliban needed them because of the money and their military expertise to be on their side, you see. So Mullah Omar himself, who is the spiritual leader, you know, of the Taliban, and still the spiritual leader of the Taliban, you know, welcomed bin Laden, gave him land and all that to train, you know, their forces in Afghanistan. That's how bin Laden came into Afghanistan. He was formerly in the Sudan. You know, after the Russians left, bin Laden went to the Sudan. But the Sudanese government kicked him out on pressure from the United States. Went back to Afghanistan, you know.
Okay, Dr. LMadu, let's break for this commercial break, and then we'll pick up at the same point. And we'll be back with our audience following this short commercial break. The topic is Afghanistan.